Sarah was just 19 when she met Jackson at her best friend Kylie's wedding. The moment she saw him laughing with the groomsmen in his crisp black tuxedo, something deep inside her shifted, like a compass needle that had been spinning aimlessly finally locking onto true north. Their eyes met across the crowded reception hall, and it was as if everyone else simply disappeared, fading into the background. Jackson made his way over to her, never breaking eye contact. He took her hand and asked her to dance, and they swayed together under twinkling fairy lights as the wedding singer crooned an old Elvis ballad. "I'm Jackson," he whispered, his breath warm against her ear making her shiver. "Sarah," she managed to reply, feeling lightheaded from his closeness. They danced for 3 songs straight, not saying much but feeling a growing connection with each passing minute. When the music finally stopped, Jackson pulled a pen from his pocket and wrote his number on a napkin. "Call me," he said softly, pressing the napkin into her palm and holding her gaze intently before melting back into the crowd. Sarah stared at the numbers scrawled on the paper. Her heart hammered wildly. She barely knew this man, but somehow she felt like her entire life had just changed course. The next day, Sarah couldn't stop thinking about Jackson. She agonized over whether to call him, picking up the phone a dozen times only to slam it back down again, losing her nerve. Finally, pulse racing, she dialed the number. He picked up on the second ring. "Hello." His deep voice made her catch her breath.
"Y Jackson, it is Sarah."
"From the wedding." "Sarah, I was hoping you'd call." She could hear the smile in his voice. "Can I take you to dinner tonight?" "I'd like that," Sarah heard herself saying. What was happening to her? She wasn't normally this impulsive, but something about Jackson short-circuited her defenses. "I'll pick you up at 7 o'clock. Sarah spent hours getting ready that evening, trying on every dress in her closet. She finally settled on a flowy green sundress that matched her eyes. When the doorbell rang, her stomach fluttered. She opened the door and there he stood, even more handsome than she remembered. His hair was still damp from a shower and he smelled like mint and spice. "You look beautiful," he said simply, his eyes crinkling as he smiled. They went to a cozy Italian bistro where they shared a bottle of red wine and talked for hours under the glow of flickering candles. Jackson was charming and attentive, asking Sarah about her life, her dreams, her passions. He held her hand across the table, his thumb gently caressing her knuckles, sending tingles through her entire body. Sarah felt herself opening up to him in a way she never had with anyone before. She told him about losing her mom as a teenager, about feeling adrift in the world. "I know what it's like to feel lost," Jackson said quietly. "My dad walked out when I was a kid. It took me a long time to deal with that abandonment." His eyes met hers and understanding passed between them. From that night on, they were inseparable. Sarah introduced Jackson to her family and friends, who all adored him. Kylie took credit for bringing them together at her wedding. "I knew you two would hit it off," she crowed delightedly. "Just call me Cupid." As the months passed in a delirious whirlwind of love and laughter, Sarah felt happier than she ever had in her life. Jackson made her feel cherished and protected. Special. They moved in together, merging their lives as naturally as 2 streams joining into a river. "I never knew it could be like this," Sarah confessed one night as they lay tangled together under the sheets. "I never knew I could love someone this much." Jackson rolled on top of her, his eyes burning into hers. "You're my soulmate, Sarah. I'll love you forever." He sealed his promise with a searing kiss. Forever. The word echoed through Sarah like a sacred vow. She couldn't imagine her life without Jackson now. He was her rock, her port in every storm. They began to talk about the future marriage, kids, growing old together. It all seemed within reach, destiny unfolding exactly as it was meant to. Until the day Jackson didn't come home from work. Sarah wasn't too worried at first when he was an hour late. But when his phone went to voicemail and the hours kept ticking by with no word, a cold dread began to seize her. By midnight, she was frantic. She called his office, his friends, the hospitals. No one had heard from him. Finally, the police knocked on her door at 4 a.m. "Ms. Sarah Larson?" "Yes, that's me. Please, my boyfriend is missing." His name is Jackson Maddox. Ms. Larson, the officer interrupted gently. I'm very sorry to have to tell you this, but Mr. Maddox was in a serious car accident. A drunk driver hit him head-on. He was killed instantly. The world spun sickeningly around Sarah before fading to black as she collapsed. The next few days passed in a blur of devastation so acute, Sarah felt like her soul had been cleaved in two. She moved in a trance, unable to eat or sleep, going through the motions of the memorial in a fog of grief. Kylie stayed by her side the whole time, holding her as she sobbed, forcing her to choke down some food. You need your strength, honey. I know it doesn't feel like it now, but you will survive this. Sarah couldn't see how. How could she go on in a world without Jackson in it? How could she ever be whole again when half of her had been ripped away? She stumbled through the next few months in a daze, reeling from the loss. Everything reminded her of Jackson. His clothes in the closet, his toothbrush by the sink, the lingering scent of his cologne on their sheets. Sarah took a leave of absence from her job and shut herself away from the world. She cried until she thought she'd drown in her own tears. At night, she'd scroll through photos of her and Jackson, playing their special songs, torturing herself with memories. But slowly, so slowly, with the love and support of her family and friends, the weights on her chest began to lighten. She could breathe again without feeling like her lungs would collapse. She could think of Jackson and smile at the beautiful memories instead of crumbling under the pain. A year after his death, Sarah ventured out to their favorite beach alone for the first time since losing him. She walked along the shore as the sun set, the sand cool and gritty under her bare feet. She thought back to the last time they'd been here, how Jackson had written their initials inside a heart in the wet sand. J+S forever, it had said. She stared out at the horizon, tears streaming down her cheeks. I'll never forget you, Jax, she whispered to the wind and waves. You were the best thing that ever happened to me, but I have to find a way to keep living. For you, for us. The world is less bright without you in it, but your love will always light my way. Closing her eyes, Sarah breathed in the salty air, and for the first time since Jackson died, she felt something bloom in her chest alongside the ever-present ache. Hope. Life would go on. She would go on. Carry Jackson in her heart, even if she had to do it alone. Learn to laugh again. Love again someday. No, she thought it wouldn't dishonor him to love another. Because love didn't divide when shared, it multiplied. Jackson had taught her that. He'd opened her up to love in a way she never had before. Showed her what it meant to be someone's entire world. One day, she'd be ready to open herself to that again. But for now, she'd take it step by step, day by day. It was going to be the longest road. But for the first time, she believed she could walk it. Sarah hugged her arms around herself as the sky streaked orange and pink. I love you, Jackson, she murmured. I'll always love you. Then she turned and slowly made her way back to the boardwalk. Back to the world of the living. The gaping hole in her heart would never fully close over. But she would survive it. And she'd do more than that, she'd thrive again. For Jackson. For love. For herself. Because even the deepest sorrow couldn't overshadow the blinding joy of having experienced a once-in-a-lifetime love. And Sarah would carry that with her, a flashlight in the dark, guiding her forward, always forward.